Welcome to Wednesday in the Word. This is a look through the Bible where we look at each book of the Bible. And this week's book is what, Philip?
Job.
Job.
Yep.
Yeah, most people pronounce it Job, but I don't get it because it's spelled just like Job.
No, I've never heard that. It's Job.
Okay.
Okay. No,
Glad
Job.
we established that.
No, it's Job, and this is.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
I only know that based upon what people have said.
I'm going to say it backwards. Bodge.
Yeah, Bodge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not
The
going to
book
say
of
that. No, and the only reason why I know it's Job is because someone has said, "Hey, that's Job."
Yeah, I would.
Because I would say that's Job every single day of my life.
Yep, me
But
too.
anyways, we'll say
an
Job.
E at the end of that.
Yeah, you would think.
But whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
I
It's
didn't write
fine.
this
I didn't
book,
write
so.
it either. So Job is an interesting book because most people think it probably happened very early on.
Yeah.
That when Job happened, his life, his story might have happened like in Genesis. Really, really early on. Around Abraham's time, that
Sure.
type of stuff. I don't know. No one really knows. So it's kind of an unknown time frame when this book happened. But it's an awesome book.
It's a
There's
great
so
book.
much stuff packed
Probably
into
one of my
it.
favorite Old Testament books.
Yeah, it's up there from one of mine too. And we see towards the beginning, man, he's a righteous guy.
He is.
He's doing what he's supposed to do, and because of that, God's blessing him.
He is.
He's got animals. He's got some servants. Everybody likes him. He's got good integrity. He's just a righteous man.
Yep.
He's got children. He's got what every person wants and more.
Yeah.
God's just blessing him because he's just a good guy. And God blesses us too in a lot of different ways, and he's blessing Job here. But we see this crazy scene where Satan comes up to heaven, to God, and basically says he's roaming the earth. He's roaming around. And the Lord says, "Have you considered my servant Job?"
Yeah.
And basically, Satan's like, well, you've been protecting him, all that stuff. He's like, if you stop protecting him, then, he's just going to curse you.
Yep.
And God's basically like, okay, we'll see. And no one's telling Job anything about this. Job doesn't know
Yeah, he
that
don't get
this
a preface like, hey, by the way, just
Yeah.
be ready for these next couple of months because here
wouldn't
it's
that be
coming.
nice in our life?
Yeah, it sure
God's like,
would.
hey,
Just
you're
a
going to go through some
warning.
rocky times. Don't worry about
Yeah.
it. It'll all be
Hang tight.
okay.
Yeah.
But Job has no idea this is happening. He don't know this conversation. So basically, God says you can do everything but harm him. You can't kill him.
Yep.
Well, Satan goes to the extreme. He's like, okay, you're going to let me do anything I want.
He's going
but-
to wish he was dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Satan tries to make that happen. So he takes out his possessions first. He don't have no more land, or he doesn't have no more livestock.
Yep.
None of that stuff. It's all gone. Just wasted away.
Decimated.
Something even much more valuable. Then a storm sweeps in. Now his kids are done.
Yeah.
Only one man out of all that survives. Just to come back to tell Job all the stuff that had happened. Wow, just a short amount of time, everything is just taken from him.
Yeah.
Absolutely just devastated. And there's a part, you see tremendous just wisdom also in this book from Job. Also, you see a lot of just depression and bitterness and weeping and stuff that we experience every day. So when all this stuff is taken away, our verses that we'll talk about, I'll just briefly talk about them right now, is that, basically Satan and God have a second conversation. Basically Job he doesn't sin out of all that. He doesn't curse God. But so Satan comes back to God, basically, let me hurt him physically.
Yep.
Not kill him, but let me hurt him physically. So basically, Satan gives them boils and just absolutely just where graphic scene really
very.
is he's got to scrape them off and it just absolutely just
release
miserable.
pressure.
He's probably so much pain and just discomfort, all those things. And to top it all off, he's still got his wife.
Yeah. Yeah.
And his wife is like, why don't you just curse God and die?
Yeah. Can you imagine?
Wow, that's
support system,
Yeah,
huh?
that's some good encouragement. Just curse God and die.
But I think, too, if you think for 1 second Satan wasn't behind that, too.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
He used everything else.
Yeah.
Why would he not use
Yeah, and
his wife?
we're going through just maybe for some of the listeners that are, that listen to from our own church. We're going through a series of spiritual warfare. This is spiritual warfare at the height.
Yeah,
You
no
know,
joke.
we see it in the Bible
pinnacle of it.
played out. You know, this is and don't think Satan can't use your wife or whoever to discourage you, to have you curse God, to make you doubt, all those different things. Hopefully not. Hopefully your wife is a believer and you know, all those things. But he can use other people in your life, and we see that here in this story. But then you see his friends.
Yeah.
His friends come and say, Bud, the only reason why you're like this is because you had to have sinned. And they're trying to pull and push and pull and
Get 'em
push.
to admit it, right?
Please, just they kind of care about him, you know, but they just are so narrow focused on that the only reason suffering happens to us is because we sinned. And in this story, we see that that's not the case.
Right.
Sometimes it's the testing of our faith. Sometimes suffering just happens in the world we live in just because of sin and chaos, all that stuff. But this is a huge piece. You know, he's trying to explain to his friends, I didn't sin. This isn't because I've sinned. You know who I am.
Yeah.
Right?
Or then they say, oh, well, at least we thought we did.
Yeah.
But, geez, for all this to be happening.
Yeah, you must
know,
have.
and it's a brutal. I mean, you know, you think about it, it's a lot of, man, I'd hate that.
It's heavy. This book's heavy in a lot of ways. But then you see a kind of a conversation for a big chunk of the book. Is a conversation between Job and God.
Yeah.
So Job is upset. He wants to die. He says, I wish I'd never been born. I wish I just never, been conceived, all that type of stuff. Just absolute misery he's in. And God comes to him with some bold, bold words. Sometimes he does that with us. He comes to Job with some bold words and basically tells him, who do you think you are?
Yeah.
I made everything. You weren't there when you're not there when the flowers bloom. You're not there when, in the depths of the ocean. You're not there at the height of the mountains. I was there. I'm there now.
Yeah.
This book shows how God is everywhere. He's made everything. And Job kind of repents, I would say.
Yeah.
Comes to his senses. Like, wow, I don't know everything. God, you are much greater than me. You know much more than I do. That's kind of a huge piece. But then at the end of the book, we see kind of, what's the word I want to use? Reconciliation. I think that's a good word. Between a lot of things. Not only God gives him sevenfold of everything he had, and it's an awesome piece. You can compare the numbers. You see 7, and you get 7 more children. All that stuff. But then, you see, you're like, well, he didn't really kind of double that, or however that.
Yeah.
But if you think, any parent would probably say, just because their kid passes away, that's still their child.
Right.
And I kind of view it the same way. So he did. He gave him, just as many kids as he had before. So that's a cool piece. But then he also restores the friendships that he has. The friends kind of get rebuked, all that stuff. But their friendship seems to be restored again. And that's kind of an awesome piece to see that God, through even something like this, through suffering and pain, God can restore relationships.
He can. And I'll just read it now because I think the most important relationship, Job comes to his senses, and it'd be hard to do after this, but chapter 42 verse 5 says, and this is, I think, the fulcrum where it tips, and Job's like, hey, I really get it. And he says this, I have heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eyes see you. So he really understands, I think sometimes we regardless of suffering or whatever, we strain our own relationship with God. The whole time, God was with Job. He didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
He just had to let him go through these things, and he didn't go anywhere, but Job put strain on the relationship by questioning, and rightfully so. I think anybody would. But he comes to himself at the end and says, I've heard of you. I've had knowledge of you, but now my eyes see you. He's saying, Lord, I get it now. The things that you told me, the conversations that we've had, the things that, God put into perspective. Hey, you're right here, and I created everything. Relax.
Yeah.
This is just a season. And then he blesses him.
Yeah.
But getting into, I know we got some verses to read. Yeah. Getting into it, chapter 1, verse 20 says, Then Job arose, tore his robe, and shaved his head, and fell to the ground and worshipped. And he said, and this is after everything had been taken away, Naked I come from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return there. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. In all this, Job did not sin, nor charge with the wrath, or charge God with wrong. And then we'll read chapter 2, verses 1 through 3, and it says, again, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them to present himself before the Lord. And the Lord said to Satan, from where do you come? And Satan answered the Lord, from going to and fro on the earth, from walking back and forth on it. Then the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on earth, a blameless and upright man, one who fears God and shuns evil? And he still holds fast to his integrity, although you incited me against him to destroy him without cause.
Mm-hmm. What do we think?
Man, he gets his livelihood, so to speak, his possessions, his servants, his kids, ripped from him from a very similar situation, a very similar conversation that we read in chapter 2 from him, and his reaction to it is, you hope if anything ever happens like this to us, we can say the same thing. Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I shall return. He's saying, the Lord gives, the Lord takes. Everything he owns, he understands who God is.
Yeah.
Doesn't make it any easier, but this is the how mature he is in his walk with the Lord, that he can say and understand things even at a time like this. Yeah. Even in the worst time of his life, he can say, hey, this is what it is. And what's interesting is 22. In all this, Job did not sin nor charge God with wrong.
Yeah.
He didn't say, why God? He didn't say anything. He said, this is just how it is. God, everything I have anyways. That's commendable in itself. Anything I have anyways is because of God. He has the right to take it away.
Yeah.
He has the right to take everything because he's given. And in chapter 2, again, there was a day when the sons of God... So you think about this. There's a meeting with these angels and God and Satan. Can you imagine just kind of, excuse me, move, I gotta talk to God. And he's talking to God. And I love the Lord's response. It's perfect. He's saying, where did you come from? Where are you going? And Satan answered, to and fro, walking back and forth. And the Lord said, because he already asked him this question.
Yeah.
He already asked him it. Have you considered my servant Job? There is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and shuns evil. Satan's like, I already know this. I don't know for sure, but it's almost like God's pushing his button saying, hey, told you so.
Yeah.
Why you act like I'm not God? Why do you act like this wouldn't be the outcome of this? And he goes on to say, and still, he holds fast to his integrity.
Yeah.
Although you incited me against him to destroy him without cause.
Yeah.
Man, I bet Satan was furious when he heard that. How do you not be? He's like, I thought I was... Because as soon as you think you know more than God, whether you were Lucifer or a man, God has a way of slapping you in the face and saying, no, look, here's where I am. Don't forget. You are created. I am the creator. And even amongst all of those bad things, this second conversation comes up, and then, Satan goes to attack Job's health and his mental capacity, and there's dreams and all sorts of, things that come of this. But God is so... you never know what we don't know what our life is going to hold. We don't know where we're going to be next year. We don't know where we're going to be serving for how long. But if we have this same mindset that Job had, is regardless what we lose, regardless what we gain, regardless how we, how we look at the things that God has given us, or the things that He's able to do for us, if we have this mindset of, it's all God's anyway, it makes things in this world so much easier to let go of. And when we realize too that, as we spoke about, and you guys can read about in the other chapters, but realize not everything we do, not everything that happens to us is because of sin in our life. It makes things easier. Not that we understand it. But it makes things easier. And I think this book here is, you don't always have to understand God to trust Him. You don't always have to know what He's doing to trust Him. Why? Because He's done so many things in your life, in our lives, that He's built credibility and a rapport with us to say, okay, yeah, this is the biggest thing I've faced so far, but the last time something happened, that was the biggest thing I faced, and you've seen me through it. Mm-hmm. So why not keep trusting him with bigger and bigger things, even though we don't understand him, and always give praise to him. He's saying, hey, Lord's taken away, blessed be the name of the Lord. I hope that, you guys can all say that when something terrible happens, regardless of situation or circumstance. Something to keep keep at the forefront anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's so true, just this idea of, praise is powerful.
It is.
And praise has gotten me through so many moments of suffering and those things, because it just is always reminding you of the goodness of God, that literally that God owns all things.
Yeah.
God works through all things, as we saw last week in the book of Esther. Mm-hmm. God works through all things, and we see that here in Job's life. It's crazy to see, that verse where it says, basically, Job didn't sin. He didn't charge God with any wrongdoing. Yeah. And I wonder, and nobody will ever know till you're actually in those moments. But could I do that?
Right.
Could I not sin if I go through something so tragic like Job went through? And there's people who went through some very, very similar probably to Job's life. Mm-hmm. And can they say they made it through without sinning, without charging God for the wrongdoing?
Right.
But also something that I see from this book, and I think it's a cool piece, is Job brought his complaints to God.
Yeah.
He wasn't happy with his life. Now, God has a way of putting things in perspective, but that's why you go to him with your complaints.
Yeah.
I don't go to God with my complaints just so I can get it off my chest. Mm-hmm. I go to God with my complaints because he's the one that can fix them. Yeah. He's the one that can do something about them. So I don't arbitrarily complain to God because it makes me feel better.
Right.
No, I complain to God when something's going horrible in my life because I know he's the one that can do something about it. Right. And he loves me enough to do something about it, whether that's just through encouragement through the Holy Spirit, or whether that's actually bringing his hand down and working a miracle like he does so often, but many times we miss it. Yeah. And here we see God doing miracles. Yeah. And at the end of this book, God restoring, God giving Job back his possessions and more. Yeah. And that's a huge thing that we have to remember, that even if we're not blessed like Job was here on earth, we've been blessed sevenfold in heaven.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've been blessed way more than we deserve in heaven. So always try to remember that. That, I'm not promised a healing here. I'm not promised, a healing of suffering here.
Right.
I'm promised a healing in heaven. I'm promised that all my tears will be wiped away. No more sorrow, no more pain, no more disease, none of that. I'm promised that for sure. Yeah. And that's a huge thing to remember. But Phil, give us your final thoughts about the book of Job.
Simple. Again, as Esther, a couple words: trust the Lord. It's really that straightforward. Yeah. And secondarily to that is recognize when you're under spiritual attack. Yeah. Go to God. With the ailments and the issues. He's, like you said it best, he's the only one that's going to be able to get you out of it anyways. Yeah. Keep trudging. Yeah. This world's not always easy. Very rarely is it, especially as a Christian. But this ain't it. Yeah. So that's all I got for this week. Yeah, absolutely. Hang in there, guys.
Yep. Trust the Lord. I like that. Trust the Lord. So this has been a look through the Bible. Tune in next week as we talk about, what book do we talk about?
A long one.
A long one?
Yeah, I think it's Psalms.
Put Psalms. No, we talk about the book of Psalms. I like Psalms. There's so many amazing ones. So many. Psalms is just good. Tune in next week to figure it out. Yeah, sure. Why it's good. Before we talk about Psalms.
Right. We just roll this one into this.
So if you like this episode, like and subscribe. Send this to someone who might be going through moments of suffering. I'm sure maybe that would be an encouragement to them, a blessing to them. Remember to pray for those who are suffering. Encourage them. Care for them. All those things that we're called to do as believers in Christ. So again, thank you for watching. As always, thank you for listening to Kingdom Faith.
See you guys next Wednesday.